Hi, Dr. Matthew Weiner from Commerce, Michigan, here to talk to you about adjustable gastric bands. There are two adjustable gastric bands that are on the market. The first is the lap band, and this has actually been owned by around 4 or 5 different companies, most recently sold about a year or two ago to Apollo Endosurgery. And then there's also the Realize band, which is owned by a Johnson & Johnson subsidiary. The type of lap band that you have, truthfully, is not all that important. There's not a lot of differences between them, and I really approach them both the same. But those are what we have available to us in this country right now. Now, what we see is that the rate of use of adjustable gastric banding is precipitously decreasing. We see it in 2011, it was almost the majority surgery that was being performed, right up there with Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. And then in 2012, we went from 35% of all surgeries down to 20%, 2013, 14%. I'm guessing that we're going to be in less than in the single digits in 2014. I was just at our national conference, and the booth where they had presented the lap band was not particularly busy. And what I found is that at least half, if not more, of all surgeons have really fully abandoned this surgical technique for weight loss. And what I think has led a lot of us to steer away from the lap band is a distrust of some of the medical literature. This is a study that was published almost 10 years ago now, that was used to emphasize and show that the lap band provided much greater provided a similar weight loss to the gastric bypass. And what they showed is that in the first year, you'll see less, and the lap band's in blue here, you'll see less weight loss than, say, the gastric bypass. But when we look out over 4 and 5 years, the weight loss is much more gradual, and it will eventually equalize and will be the same. The problem was that none of us had that experience in our practice. And so I actually did an experiment, and I tried to create the same chart using my data from my practice. You'll notice my gastric sleeve is a little short because I haven't been doing them for that long and collecting enough data to represent years 4 and 5. I don't have it. But we see the gastric bypass on top, very much in line, around 60% excess weight loss with what was seen in that last study. But when I looked at my gastric band patients, I see 40% and even lower, down to 30% at year 5. And what I'm finding in my practice is that patients at first have a really great response to the band and do lose weight easily and have initially a very positive experience with the band. But over time, what happens is the honeymoon ends. And for some reasons that we don't fully understand, patients will start to develop acid reflux, difficulty swallowing, and frequent vomiting, which will require fluid to be removed from the band, which causes weight to be regained. This then triggers the patients to come back and have more fluid placed into the band, which of course causes a return of the heartburn, the difficulty swallowing, and the vomiting. And patients find themselves in this kind of up and down cycle with their weight moving back and forth in and out of their doctor's offices, having fluid placed, having it removed, placed in again, having it removed. And this is a very, very frustrating cycle, and one that is difficult to break or get out of. So if you've had a gastric band placed, then obviously we can't turn back the hands of time and say, well, we shouldn't do the surgery. Now we have to deal with it. So I think there's really 2 effective options, because we have to look at weight loss and your ability to live with this band over the long run. We can't look at this over 3 or 6 months. We have to look at it over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. This device is not going to magically remove itself, so we have to manage it and deal with it. The optimal way, in my opinion, to deal with the lap band is to loosen it to the point where you have no symptoms, where you don't have heartburn, where you're not vomiting. Vomiting should not be part of your life, even if you have a lap band. And you're not having difficulty swallowing. And in fact, you really shouldn't even feel the lap band in place. And then work really hard on good nutrition and exercise. And I put all of my patients on our Pound of Cure program, but emphasizing a whole foods, unprocessed diet rich in fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and beans, and getting off the processed food. What happens with many patients is when their band is super tight, they can't eat the fruit, they can't eat the vegetables, they can't eat the lean proteins. and they migrate more towards softer processed foods. So we have to break that cycle, get you on an unprocessed diet, and loosen the band to the point where you can eat a pound or more of vegetables a day. And over time, we may be able to help stabilize your weight and even bring it down a few pounds and get you to the point where you're satisfied. I'm not saying it's an easy task, but it's one that is possible. I have done this with many patients, and the results are feasible. If we're not able to achieve that, if the reflux is persistent despite removing most or all of the fluid, if the weight gain is precipitous or you never lost enough weight in the first place and you're having trouble maintaining the diet and getting the weight off, I think it's very reasonable to entertain removing the band and converting either to a gastric bypass or a sleeve gastrectomy. These are higher risk procedures the second time around because of scar tissue, but nonetheless, there's something that most bariatric surgeons are doing frequently enough that we're getting very good at it and can do almost as safely as the initial procedures. If you have any questions about your gastric band and live in southeastern Michigan, I'm always happy to see new patients. Our weight loss program emphasizes whole unprocessed foods. It's called A Pound of Cure and is based on my book, and we have more information about that on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. Thank you.